to introduce our inspiration for the Bush Center and Bush Institute, the 43rd President of the United States, George W. Bush.
Please be seated. I want to thank Jim Glassman for his leadership of the Bush Institute. I don't think anybody could have possibly predicted that in a short period of time we have achieved so much. A lot of it has to do with Mark Langdale's pushing and Jim Glassman's leading. And so I want to thank you for the introduction. Thrilled to be here with the president of SMU, Gerald Turner, and Gail. Many of you have heard me say this before, but we're delighted and honored to be associated with Southern Methodist University. It's really a fine place, and we intend to work cooperatively to enhance its excellence. I want to thank Senator Bill Frist. What a surprise. So he and I share something in common. We were both honored to serve at the same time, and we're both retired. I've been looking forward to this moment, Your Holiness, because I wanted to introduce you to friends of mine and Laura's. And I want my friends to be able to meet you. I had a lot of extraordinary experiences when I was president, as you can imagine. A lot of interesting moments. But some of the most extraordinary had to do with His Holiness. Because when you spend time with him, you realize that there's something unusual about the man. So people say, "What's he like?" You know, what's the Dalai Lama like? Here's my best description: he's courageous and humble. He is a delight to be around. When I think of the Dalai Lama, I smile. He brings peace to your heart. And yet he is courageous in the defense of liberty. Laura and I had the opportunity to give him some tea today at our house there, and he said, "You're too quiet." I said, "Look, I don't want to butt in anymore. You know, I'm kind of out of politics." He said, "You need to speak up for freedom more, because the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, understands, as well as anybody, that freedom yields peace. And he is a man of peace." You've done us a huge favor for being here, Your Holiness. This is an extraordinary gift to have you here on the SMU campus and to be having lunch with our friends. This is a priceless contribution to the Bush Center. I can assure you that when you tell your buddies around the country, "I had lunch with His Holiness the Dalai Lama," they're going to say, "No, you didn't." That's typical Texas braggadocio. But you did, and I consider this one of the great gestures of friendship. And so would you please welcome His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Respected my dear friend, Mr. Bush, President Bush, and other guests. Since my last meeting in White House, or I think the congressional medal ceremony, I always eager to see him. And particularly, I didn't mention, after my surgery, the gallbladder, you telephoned me, very much touched. So now today, I had the opportunity meeting my longtime friend, and very, very supportive. Your support, not just sort of pro-Tibetan, but pro-justice. So, I'm very, very happy now here, come to see you. And my sort of, I think the expression to him, or I think one of the last meeting in White House. Of course, this is, I think, a little bit, I think, secret maybe. I told him, I pray and hope he live several years, long period, so that positive result from his policy may see by the person who created this sort of a policy, who initiated this policy. So he also a little bit moved. I also a little bit moved. It's quite natural. Irrespective of what sort of status. But most important is human being with warm-heartedness. That is very, very important. I always say, when I met people, firstly, I look human level. Then secondary, what religious faith, what political status, or like these things. That is secondary. Important is human level. So as soon as we met, I found human level, a very wonderful person, a very good person. So since then, at once we developed some kind of real sort of friendship. So he praised too much. Now here, while he introduced me. That may be a little exaggeration. Because he very close in his mind, in his mind or his heart is very close to me. So maybe it's understandable, little exaggeration, positive exaggeration. But some other people who feel very negative towards me, they also naturally exaggerate some negative side. So anyway, I really enjoy. Now I just want to share, as is was the introduction to myself. Firstly, as I mentioned earlier, I consider myself just one human being. On that level, I believe, over 6 billion human beings, everyone have to think about the well-being of whole humanity. So on that level, I try make my own contribution, as my own share, how to be happy human being, happy family, happy community. Money, important. Power also important. I think President Bush, already have the experience. The power alone may not bring peace of mind. You enjoy, I think, most sort of powerful figure on this planet, but not necessarily bring real inner peace. Maybe more anxiety, more stress. So the real sort of source, ultimate source of inner peace is, I believe, warm-heartedness. Now, according to latest scientific findings, they also now begin to feel warm-heartedness here. Your health better, your mind more calm. Real inner peace then develop. So that's my main sort of commitment, to make awareness, or in order to achieve happy life, not only just to look external sort of facilities or things, but look inward. And my approach, not necessarily based on religious belief. So without religion, without touching religion, simply using common sense and common experience and the scientific sort of findings, use these things, then develop conviction in order to achieve happy sort of life, healthy body. You have to take care about our inner peace. That's number one commitment. Number two commitment, then I'm speaking on the secondary level. I'm Buddhist. So as a result of meeting with spiritual brothers, sisters from various sort of different institutions, I realize all have certain sort of experience, deeper human experience out of their own faith. So it clearly shows all different religious faith, in spite of different philosophical view, all have same potential to bring inner peace and become sensible human being. So therefore, there is sort of, and then obviously, all major institutions, philosophically, big differences, but all carry the same message of love, compassion, with that forgiveness, tolerance, self-discipline, and contentment. All religion, all major institutions, which talks on these things, the same way. So there is sort of common practice, and all have same potential, and then realistically speaking, whether you like other religions or not, you have to live together. 1,000 years we live together. Like India, I think more than 2,000, 2 to 3,000 years, different religious traditions live together. So India, I think one good example, really harmonious sort of, as far as religious is concerned, very harmonious sort of society. Just recently I met one Romanian who carrying some research about religious harmony in India. So one day I met him and he told me he's surprised one sort of village, whole village, Muslim village, in there only 3 Hindu families, but no fear. Very friendly attitude, each other. So he really surprised. He told me like that. So therefore, religious harmony is very possible and very necessary. So that's my number 2 commitment, promote religious harmony. And third, about Tibet. And now already, I think everybody knows, I relinquished, you see, the political sort of responsibility. Last 4 centuries sort of old tradition now end. However, I'm Tibetan. I forgot to mention to you another point I want to tell you and also their friends. The Tibetan ecology sort of situation, that's I think very, very important. Firstly, there's the Chinese ecologist. They describe Tibetan plateau as third pole because they affect global warming from Tibetan plateau is as much as North Pole, South Pole. And they rate the global warming generally 0.1. Tibetan plateau 0.3 because of high altitude and dry climate. So that Chinese expert used to describe Tibet as a third pole. Then also the major rivers which cover almost whole Asia, from China up to Pakistan. Major river come from, ultimately come from Tibetan plateau, Tibetan sort of mountains. So these rivers I think over a billion human beings' life depend on these rivers. So therefore, taking special care about the Tibetan ecology is something very important. Some Indian expert expressing to me, the lowland, hot climate, even some damage, by nature, also they revive nature process quicker. But like Tibet, high altitude and dry climate, it takes longer period to recover by nature. So therefore, we really need special care. So my worry is there's some problem due to political sort of reasons that once we understand, mutual understand is developed, then these things can change within weeks. But damage ecology, you see, change policy, then damage already done damage, you see, cannot sort of change. So that sort of effect remain long-lasting way. So therefore, it is really one of my top sort of concerns. And then I think, fortunately, since Torungchin, Prime Minister, there, you see, he already used to notice it is in national interest to preserve some of these forests. And during his period, he gives some instruction, limitation of deforestation. So already, you see, they take notice. However, because of corruption, so still carrying the deforestations and also the mining indiscriminately. Even so, some just I think 2 years ago, I think 1 year ago, I met one Tibetan whose sort of native area, empty sort of wild sort of land. He says many wild animals traditionally there. So then he showed a picture, one newly constructed factory. Once that factory developed or constructed, many wild animals died, he mentioned. So these are the indication that without a proper sort of take care, planning, minimum sort of damage about the environment, that can done. I notice in Germany and some other places, without touching the sort of industrialized sort of picture, but pay more attention about sort of the environmental impact. I don't know. So you see, we have the technology can do that. So the Chinese, I think, need more experience, more technology, preservation of the ecology, like that. That I want to share with you. So occasionally, please speak, reminds importance of that. And then perhaps some people here may have some sort of friend who are expert about ecology. Then set a group, a small group, with full cooperation with Chinese ecologists, visit these areas in Tibet. So research thoroughly how much damage already done, then what is the best to protect it in future. I think they also need. So this suggestion, many occasions, some parliamentarian group, some congressman, also the senator I also mentioned. So that I feel just an NGO or private, some expert, with full cooperation with Chinese specialists, then visit and spend a few months and study on the spot. I think Chinese government also, I think, need or appreciate. And these are non-political. That I want to share with you. Then thank you very much. You offer, your organization, institution, offer the lunch, a very good lunch. although a little bit hurry up. Otherwise, it's a very good lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Holiness. And you said that, which I hear from President Bush all the time, freedom is universal. So it's not just for Americans, it's not just for Europeans, it's for everyone. And we wish that you and the people of Tibet, certainly within your lifetime, will enjoy the freedom that you desire and that you deserve. So thank you for coming. This has been a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.